Welcome to Sistah's Conversations podcast with your hostess, Latrice Carter. We feature interviews in literary, film, and television, as well as real topics that impact the Black community.
Welcome to Sistah's Conversations with Latrice Carter. This episode is our author spotlight with my special guest, Dana Sanders. Dana Sanders has spent most of her life reading and writing romance that focus on family dynamics. Allegra's Shadow, her first romantic suspense, and its prequel, Shadow Beginnings, are no different. After years of dealing with New York winters that made her bones rattle like dice, Dana moved south. She lives in North Carolina with her family and hopes to get a female Shiba Inu soon because it's hard being the only female in the house. Welcome to Sistah's Conversations, Dana. How are you?
All right. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, you are so welcome. Glad to have you on the show. I believe you were also on my Blog Talk radio show when Allegra's Shadow came out years ago.
I believe I was, yes.
Yeah, so welcome back. I always love it when authors that have been on my show previously also return. It's always a pleasure.
Oh, it's good to be back.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So you recently released on June 11th of this year, Shadow Beginnings. Give our listeners a short summary of what that story is about.
Well, Shadow Beginnings is the prequel to Allegra's Shadow, which is my first romantic suspense. And it delves into the complex relationship between Mariah St. Cloud and her older sister, Allegra. And it runs from childhood through adulthood. It also gives a glimpse into father-daughter dynamics, and as well as favoritism within families, favoring one child over the other, its effect. Also dips a toe into colorism and gives insight into their mother, Anna's backstory, as well as their grandmother, Della Grandee Hennessy, and Mariah's relationship with her mother, her grandmother, and even her cousin, Kevin, who is more like a brother than a cousin to her. And it also mentions Anthony Kane, who is the hero from Allegra's Shadow, because he and Kevin are friends. So it incorporates a lot of things, and I was always interested.
Are you there?
So that's the nutshell of what Shadow Beginnings is. So it can be read in either order. You can read Allegra's Shadow first and then go back to Shadow Beginnings and say, oh, I see why this happened or why that character behaved this way. Or you can read it starting with the prequel and then going into Allegra's Shadow, and then you can also see certain things.
Okay. Hey, Dana, we're going to have to stop and re-record that first question because you went in and out.
Okay.
Yeah, you went in and out. So let me stop it. Recently, you released Shadow Beginnings on June 11th. Give our audience and our listeners a short summary of what this story is about.
Okay, Shadow Beginnings is the prequel to Allegra's Shadow, which you had mentioned is my first romantic suspense. And it delves into the complex relationship between Mariah St. Cloud and her sister Allegra. Mariah St. Cloud is the heroine of Allegra's Shadow. And it shows their relationship from childhood to adulthood. It also gives a glimpse into father-daughter relationships, as well as favoritism within families when one child is favored over the other and how that affects the other child. Also gives a hint of colorism and also insight into their mother Anna's backstory, as well as their grandmother, Grandee, and Mariah's relationship to her mother, her grandmother, and also her cousin, Kevin, who was more like a brother than a cousin. And it also mentions Anthony Kane, who is the hero of Allegra's Shadow, because he and Kevin and Anthony are friends. And it features the two women, how they interact with each other and how they don't interact with each other, and how they turn into the women that they become.
Okay, very good. So what made you decide to do this particular story as a follow-up to Allegra's Shadow?
Well, I was having a bit of writer's block, and I was talking to the wonderful Jacqueline Thomas, and she advised me to write a story with characters I knew already.
Mm-hmm.
She said, why don't you write a prequel to Allegra's Shadow? You already know those characters, and why not? So that's where it came from.
Okay. That's a good idea when you're stuck, is to write about the characters you already know. That makes sense.
Right.
Absolutely. So what is your writing process when you sit down to write a story, when you sit down to start building out your story? What's your process?
My writing process is that I usually start with a 3 to 5 sentence summary of the story. And then I move to character bios.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I use a plot outline for each chapter.
Okay.
And so I just started using plot outlines. I was using a different method, but I find that the plot outlines helped me even more.
Okay. That's very good. Very good. When you create your characters, how do you go in depth with creating your characters? Is it just a summary, or you get very detailed?
I do biography pages, and I also use some books that help with character traits and quirks and likes and dislikes. So I use some books by authors Becca Puglisi and Angela Ackerman. They have about 7 books under a thesaurus series.
Mm-hmm.
And so the ones I use the most are the negative trait thesaurus, the positive trait thesaurus, the emotional wound thesaurus, and the occupation thesaurus. They also have 3 other books I'm trying to get.
Okay.
So those are the ones I use the most.
Okay. Very good.
Plus any forensic information. So, but those are the ones I use.
Okay. Very good. That's a good way to build your characters out.
Yes, I'm still looking to flesh out my library with other character clinic kind of books. You can never have too many resources.
No, you can't. I like KM Willing. She does the character arcs, and she gives a lot of books on character developments and the emotions. And I actually love her. She gives a lot of resources as well. So I'm real big on writing resources, because it makes you stronger as a writer, and it helps you to really be able to build out your stories that you're bringing to life.
Yes. Well, if you could email me that, I'll definitely look into her too.
Oh, absolutely. I will definitely share that information with you as well.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. So do you have a favorite character in this, between these 2 books?
It's a toss-up. For me, it's Mariah and Anthony, because I started with both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And Mariah, because she's a cross between spunky and shy.
Mm-hmm.
And Anthony is this freakishly handsome guy, but he is so much more than his looks, because his grandmama raised him right. He doesn't use his looks as a weapon against anyone.
Okay.
So that's what made me really fall in love with him. Like, man, if I wasn't married and I was single, Mariah doesn't want him, I'll take him. So it's really between him and her together.
Okay. I like that. Now, with all fiction stories, sometimes authors, we take from our own life or events that happen in the news. Could this book be based off of something that happened in your own personal experience, or something you witnessed, or an event that happened in the news?
Well, it's a combination of my experience and experience of other people. Being the other sister, other sibling, I've had a friend who said, my older sister was the one everybody looked at. Hey, she's so pretty. And here I am sitting next to her, and they just ignore me. From my experience, it was a brother. I have an older brother who's model handsome, but he's like Anthony. He's humble about it. And no one in my family downed me because I didn't look like him. It was people outside of my family. And so I always felt like the ugly duckling. And so I understand where Mariah comes from, especially because she has this condition called heterochromia iridium, which is where there are two different colored eyes. So she's the outcast in her family to her father because she looks different.
Okay.
And so there's always this otherness within the family. Her mother, her grandmother, her cousin, they all love her. And Allegra is sometimes okay with her, but her father, that's part of the breakdown in their relationship.
Okay.
And so because she looks different, she's treated differently. And so I understand the pain she feels at being the ugly sister. I just understand it.
Okay, absolutely. So this is our opportunity now that we like to have our authors share a reading from their book. So if you would like to share up to 5 minutes of Shadow Beginning to give our listeners a taste.
Yes, sure. I will do that. Just a minute. I have an excerpt. This is the beginning of the book where Mariah, Allegra, and their mother, Anna, are at a birthday party for one of their neighbors. And a girl named Scotty Bates, who's a bit of a bully, is also there. And when the adults go into the house to get some beers or have a quick adult conversation, and while Allegra and the birthday girl and two other guests are engrossed in their own conversation on the other side of the backyard, Mariah is trying to introduce herself to the birthday girl's cousin who's sitting on the other side of the backyard. And that's when Scotty and her minion Erica try to bully her. And Allegra steps in, and this is what happens afterwards. All right, so Allegra put her hands on her hips. If you don't leave my sister alone, I'll tell everyone about your mom and what I saw in the locker room last week. Although Mariah didn't like Scotty, she couldn't help but stare at her sister with uneasy confusion. Allegra had a way of sniffing out secrets that would make a bloodhound envious. Bad secrets. What did her sister know? What is going on here? Came Mrs. Parker's voice as she and Anna approached with concerned expressions on their faces. Nothing, Mrs. Parker. Allegra turned to Mrs. Parker with a smile and spoke up before Melinda could. She looked back at Scotty. Right? Yeah, Scotty answered roughly after a couple of seconds. It's nothing, Mrs. Parker. Even though Mariah had defended herself against Scotty, this was one of the times it felt good to have Allegra as her big sister. After eating dinner 2 weeks later, Mariah went upstairs to her mother's room. Her father was in the basement and her mother was downstairs talking to a neighbor, but she said it was okay for Mariah to be in her room and try on her makeup. I'll be up in a few minutes, Anna told her. Mariah inspected her face in the vanity mirror, turning her head to the right and then left. Every day, Mariah wished she wasn't born with two different colored eyes. Her mother called one eye chocolate and the other almost chocolate. She tried to make them sound nice, but said it was good to be different. But Mariah didn't like it. People always stared at her or made fun of her, including Allegra. Mariah wished she could look more like her mother or Allegra. Maybe her father would pay more attention to her if she did. Mariah put down the lipstick tube, picked up the sharpened black eye pencil, removed the plastic cap from the tip, and leaned forward in the mirror. Carefully, she slid the pencil just above the lashes on her left eyelid. She was almost finished with her left eye when she heard boom. Frightened, Mariah let out a squeak and her hand jerked. She whirled around with a frown to see Allegra, still wearing shorts and a t-shirt, standing in the doorway. Allegra held her sides as she bent at the waist and laughed. Her hair hung midway between her shoulders and back and moved like a curtain to cover her face. When she straightened up, Allegra used a hand to push her hair behind one of her ears and pointed at Mariah with an opposite finger. You should have seen your face. Why do you have to be so mean? Mariah asked with restrained hurt and anger. Why do you have to be so weird and ugly, Two-Tone? Was Allegra's response. Mariah's lips thinned. Allegra was the queen of nicknames. Two-Tone was her nickname for Mariah, as a comparison between the two-tone pants of the 1980s and Mariah's eyes. It was a disparaging reminder of Mariah's otherness within the family, something that kept her out of the loving inner circle that Allegra and their father shared. Okay, come on, you're not like me, but you're not totally ugly, Allegra cajoled. When Mariah continued to give her an accusatory stare, Allegra grudgingly offered, fine, I'll help you fix it, and approached Mariah until they were a foot apart. Looking at the two girls, one would think they were cousins instead of sisters. Like her mother, maternal grandmother, and sister, Mariah was blessed with velvety milk chocolate skin and killer cheekbones. But Allegra's face was a perfect oval, while Mariah's was rare, a diamond shaped. The top lip was fuller than the bottom one, and her two-toned eyes were attractively set apart. Her hair, a rich dark brown sugar, fell slightly past her neck, and even though long legs ran in their matrilineal line, Mariah was the smallest member of their family. At 11 years old, Allegra had long limbs for her age. From Anna's mother, she inherited wavy jet black hair, along with the potential for an ample bosom. Allegra strongly resembled their father's mother, with features that were similar to Naomi Campbell's, and bold, evenly spaced jet black eyes. Allegra was very proud of her looks, since Naomi was dark-skinned and the first Black model on the covers of magazines like French, British, and American Vogue. What Mariah yearned to share with Allegra more than her beauty was her confidence. Mariah was a bookworm and stayed to herself. People gravitated towards Allegra as if she gave off a kind of people magnet perfume. Allegra commanded attention wherever she went. She could talk to anybody, make them like her, trust her, or fear her, and she seemed to know what to do in any situation. Deep down, Mariah idolized Allegra, but something cautioned her from showing it. Even though Allegra looked good on the outside, sometimes she could be ugly as dog poo on the inside. Pulling a makeup cleansing cloth from the container on their mother's vanity, Allegra wiped away the wayward pencil mark on the side of Mariah's face, a mark Allegra caused Mariah to make when she scared her little sister. She picked up the eye pencil. Close your eyes, don't look until I'm finished. Allegra lined Mariah's unfinished lid, and when she was done with both eyes, she picked up their mother's berry-colored lipstick and painted Mariah's lips. You can look now. Mariah turned, and what she saw in the mirror made her feel better. A small smile bold her lips. Don't use that eye pencil when you get older. Your eyes already make people stare, but at least now you look less ugly. Allegra smirked. Just like that, their moment of closeness evaporated into dust. Mariah's heart deflated, and it showed on her face. Oh, come on, I gave you a compliment. Mariah grabbed two of her mother's makeup cleansing cloths and ran to the master bathroom. Allegra's laughter chased after her. How can she be so nice one minute and mean the next? Mariah asked herself as she removed the makeup. Tears filled her eyes, and Mariah couldn't help but feel that Allegra's compliment wasn't a compliment at all. So that's the introduction to their relationship.
Oh, wow. That is just, oh, nice. Very nice. And I can see, young ladies who, feel that way, that will be able to relate to this story.
Yes.
So with that being said, is there a message you'd like for your readers to take away from this particular story?
I believe the message I'd like them to take away is that children live what they learn.
Mm-hmm.
And so because their father favored Allegra, that caused Mariah to live with a lot of self-doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And it affected how she interacted with men.
Mm-hmm.
And the father-daughter relationship is a complex one. And women either look for men who look like their father or are like their fathers, or the opposite of their father, or a fantasy of them, that according to Allegra Van Zandt. Just like with mothers and sons, she says mothers destroy sons.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just how you're treated within your family that really affects how you deal with others outside, in the family and outside of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so important for us as parents to nurture our children and teach them, to teach them love and show them love. Yes. So that they'll be able to identify what love is, and also to give love. Because it's hard when you have a child that feels resented, that feels insecure and doesn't feel loved 100%. There's always that middle child syndrome, or that youngest child syndrome, not being the favored or what have you. And I could sense that as you were reading this story between the two girls.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what genres, so we like to get to know our authors too, like what you like to do. So what genres do you love reading, and why?
Well, I enjoy reading romantic suspense because it fuses romance and suspense. And so I get mystery and lovemaking in the same book.
Mm-hmm.
2 for 1 for me. So because when I started writing it, I realized how difficult it was. You have to balance both genres within the same book, and not have too much romance and not have too much suspense. So it's always the balancing act that I like and marvel at how people do it.
Okay. Okay. Absolutely. Absolutely. Name 3 of your favorite authors and why.
Well, 3 of them are Deborah Fletcher Mello. She was my mentor. I met her back in 2010. I started reading her books. I haven't been able to read anyone as much as I like. And then it's Jacqueline Thomas, and then Vanessa Riley. Because, well, Vanessa Riley writes historical fiction, and one of her books that I have is about Blackamoors in England, and how there were Black people in England in early 1800s, and some of them had money and things we didn't know. She's actually, I think, an expert on that subject. So, and what I liked about all 3 of them is how the characters are very rich. And so when they breathe or when they sigh, it's like I feel it. And so that's my goal as an author is when my character cries, I want you to have a tear coming out of your eye, or when they laugh, I want you to laugh. So that's what I like about them.
Okay, that's good. That's really good. What advice would you give those aspiring to write their first book?
My advice would be to read a lot of the books that in the genre that you want to write in. So if you like romance, sci-fi, whatever it is, soak all that up so you get the feel of the genre, and then just go for it.
Absolutely. That is good advice. Because it's hard to write something that you've never read.
Correct. It's very true.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what's the next project for you?
I'm actually working on 2 things, but one of them is another romantic suspense entitled What Lies Beneath. It's a related book to Allegra Shadow, and it's also based here in North Carolina. Allegra Shadow is mostly based in Raleigh, North Carolina. What Lies Beneath is based in a fictional town in North Carolina called Bowman Point, and it focuses on Trina Carter, who is a forensic pathologist, and Max Bowman, who is a family lawyer, also a descendant of the founding fathers of that town. They secretly dated in high school, and then he dumped her without a word and left town for years. And he's only returned because his father, who is used to be a judge and the most important person, the most powerful person in town, had a stroke. And so she's, excuse me. So because of that breakup, and they've never spoken or seen each other until he comes back shortly after her father dies. And Trina has always believed that her mother, Sarah, abandoned her. Her mother, Sarah, has suffered from postpartum depression and had a tendency to wander off. And one night she just disappeared. But the truth is that she's attacked in her home while Trina's a baby. And she's never seen again. But people believe she disappeared because there were no signs of struggle and her history. So Trina believed her mother left her. So she has a chip on her shoulder because of that in this small to medium-sized town. And she also has a very high IQ. So she was skipped a grade. And so that made her stand out even more. There was jealousy and insecurity from people because she's a child correcting adults and they don't like that. And then Max Bowman, he's very laid back. He's very charming. He and Anthony are kind of the same, but different. Anthony is darker on the outside and lighter on the inside, and Max is light on the outside and darker on the inside. So he has this laid back exterior, but he's got a bit of his dad, Big Jack, in him when he needs to. And he finds Sarah's remains on abandoned land that he's trying to develop as a botanical garden for his surrogate grandmother. And when he finds her, he tells Trina, and he decides he's going to help her find out who killed her mother. And of course, Trina doesn't want that. In addition to finding out her mother never left her, that she was killed, she discovers that the man who raised her, who she loves very dearly, is not her biological father. And as they delve into her mother's background, Trina starts to suspect that her biological dad's identity and her mother's murder are linked. And in between all that, it's their the past between her and Max, why he left the way he did. And so I entitled it What Lies Beneath because Trina was living a lie and when her mother was lying beneath abandoned land all this time. So,
okay.
The other one is a romance. It has to do with love and horses. Kim Nielsen inherits land, a nice size of this grand house and 5 acres of land with horses on it. And when she inherits it, she's actually on her last legs financially. She's broke, about to get evicted. So she takes a chance and accepts this. Conditions are she has to be there for 6 months and take care of the horses. And who's there? But his name is Micah, and he helps with the horses. And he teaches her how to take care of them, and a romance blooms between them.
Okay, very good. So a bonus question. Tell our listeners something about you that's not in your bio, that's not on your website, that is unique about you.
Oh, let's see. Well, as a child, I studied gymnastics, and I was a bit of when I was growing up, if girls played certain sports, you were considered a tomboy. So I was a tomboy. I watched wrestling with my dad on Saturday nights. I played double Dutch and straight rope with the girls and dodgeball and stickball with the boys. And so I was a hybrid. I think I was better at the sports than jumping rope, but I straddled both worlds. I'm a fan of martial arts because my dad loves it. And I also grew up on those martial arts movies after the Saturday cartoons went off.
Mm-hmm.
And I also have my own, actually just took a pair of my father's samurai swords and claimed them for myself. So I said, Dad, you have 2 sets of swords. Pick which one I'm going to take, because one of these I'm going to take with me. So I got a double set there. So I have an eclectic taste for movies. So I like romance. I like more drama and suspense and certainly I like action movies, Marvel, those kind of things, in addition to dramas. And so I like different types of movies and different types of music. I was raised with different types of music, and my husband, has a ear for music, so can't get away from that, even if I wanted to. But I don't want to. So we're raising our son right. He knows what decent music is. So he knows.
Okay, very nice. So tell our listeners and where and how they can connect with you.
So I have an account on Twitter, Facebook. I just joined the Clubhouse app. And I also have my website, danasandershill.wix site. That's wixsite.com/Dana, where you can see information on my books. And then you can also contact or look at my bio or see the connected books and see what's coming up. So if there's any other apps, also Instagram, I do go on there as well.
Okay. Awesome. So Dana, thank you so much for stopping by today to talk about your latest release, Shadow Beginnings. You all can also get Allegra Shadow. Both her books are on Amazon. For all of Sistah's Place listeners and book lovers, make sure you support our authors that we have on our showcase. Connect with her on social media, follow her on Instagram, follow her on Twitter, connect with her on Facebook. She has a Facebook page called Dana Sanders Hill fan site. Make sure you guys connect with her, ask her questions. Authors love for you to read their books and write reviews. Please, reviews are so important. It really does, share your thoughts about the books, share your thoughts about the character, your favorite character, and, and converse with the author. We love that, that interaction, that engagement. And like she said, her books are available. Her books are available on Amazon. They're also on her website. You can click the links on her website. It'll take you right to the links to purchase. So grab yourself a copy of Shadow Beginnings. And if you didn't read Allegra Shadow, I strongly suggest you grab a copy of Allegra Shadow. I will be grabbing copies of both books, adding those to our book club list. Dana, we have a book club on Facebook called Sistah's Place Book Club. Make sure it's a private group. You can join that group and share your book because there are authors and readers in that book club as well.
I will do that. Thank you.
You are so welcome. You are so welcome. And that is going to be our show. You guys, please make sure you stay safe, be blessed, and pick up Allegra Shadow and Shadow Beginnings today. Thank you, Dana.
Thank you. You have a good day.
You too.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
to our special guests for joining the show today. Be sure to follow us on your favorite streaming channel so you don't miss a show. We can be heard on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and YouTube at Sistah's Place. Visit our website, www.sistahsplace.com, to learn more about us.